Alright, well I think the making of this video goes against my better judgment, and I usually try and let the internet professionals deal with this stuff, but man, the commentary surrounding The Division 2, specifically outside of the community, in the past 48 hours has been truly entertaining. And so I'll chalk it up to summer heat and the fact that July is traditionally a slow month. We're going to talk about all of the latest controversy, opinions, and some of the absolutely wild takes that have been shared around online in regards to the game's recent Descent XP exploit. Because I read these and it just baffles me. You'll see what I mean. Like I said, I usually avoid these topics, but I simply could not this time. So in case you've been out of the loop, let us quickly cover what has been going on. In the recent weeks following the Descent game mode's release, players discovered a bug, which keep in mind had to be entirely intentionally triggered, which allowed for huge, unfathomable XP gains at a rate I'm not sure the game has ever seen before, and it's since now been patched, so I don't think there's any problem in saying. It allowed people to get to a high Descent loop, let's say 20, 25, and if they stayed at the lobby of their current loop, there was a way to invite other players into the session, which is usually not allowed, and if they joined and then left, the game would award you with XP equivalent to how much you would earn if you had just done the entire run yourself. And so people would join, leave, rejoin, leave, rejoin, leave, do this for a couple hours on end, and before you knew it, you had well over tens, maybe even hundreds of thousands brand new shiny SHD levels, causing huge imbalances in PvP due to the infinite health boost that the SHD system provides, as well as further entrenching the power gap in PvP with the likes of the expertise system. So it was, for lack of a better term, completely destructive for the Division 2's endgame health and economy, and in PvE, you load into Countdown with someone who's got 650,000 SHD, you know they didn't get that legitimately, and that was always just sad and demotivating to see. And so, because of the scale and impact of this bug, the devs took action. Back on Tuesday the 4th, they released this statement, which in summation says that they identified the issue, have flagged the accounts that took part in it, and will be doing one of two things. If this is your first offense for this type of thing, your account gets a 2-week suspension, after which you can come back and play regularly. If it's your second or even greater offense, then you will be getting a permanent suspension. And they also said that any suspended accounts will be getting their progress rolled back to wherever they were pre-exploit. So a very decisive and firm hammer coming down on those who partook in the exploit, and there's plenty that could be said for the conversation that has gone on within the Division's own community on this, but as I mentioned at the start, this sparked some wild takes online. I don't know who originally retweeted this and got this kind of spread around, but you had news pundits, Destiny creators, and many more throwing their hat into the ring on this. And while I am all for conversation and discussion, the sheer lack of knowledge or background on the situation before some of these people made said comments was astounding and frankly just straight up entertaining. There's two that I want to highlight here. The first that I think many Division community members caught on to was from Tom Warren, who is a senior editor at The Verge. He's got nearly 250,000 followers on Twitter. Now you might hope that someone with such reputation and status would have high journalistic integrity. Seems like maybe not. He first retweeted the game's post and said, "This is precisely why I stopped playing The Division years ago. If you have bugs in your game, don't punish players for farming them." Now my initial reaction to reading that was, okay, seems like an odd reason to definitively quit a franchise for good, and I have to imagine that he got caught and suspended for partaking in an old exploit, otherwise why care? And the only one I can think of from years ago, as he says, was the TUA damage glitch, so alright, that took all of 5 seconds to put together. But look, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. If you care that strongly about the subject and you want to stop playing to support that viewpoint, totally within your right, and I support you, Tom. Even though that retweet seemed rather unnecessary and an easy click and reaction farm, but that's beside the point. What really got me with this was that he didn't stop there. Instead, he went to war with dozens of the commenters, including people from our own community. And while we could spend hours going over all of the very questionable comments that were made there, this one is the one that got me. Someone replied to Tom's original post saying, "Nah, you're wrong, man. People know from right or wrong. If you don't play the game anymore, then you would not know the state of the game," which is an excellent point. Tom did say he stopped playing years ago, so it's fine to have the opinion that banning for exploits is wrong, but surely he can't claim to know the current status of the game, yeah? Wrong. He replied with the very articulate, very detailed, and totally non-ambiguous comment of, "I know nobody is playing the game anymore, and I'd imagine it's a bunch of poor decisions like this that have led to that." I'll tell you what that sounds like to me. Those sound like the words of someone who is still salty that they caught doing a damage exploit more than 3 years ago. But seriously, for being a senior editor of such a large organization, you'd think it'd be smart to take 5 minutes of your time to go and fact check what you're saying. Because while I don't think anybody is trying to claim that Division 2 is anywhere near as popular or successful as Destiny, for example, for the circumstances Division 2 is in, i.e. it going through a 15-month content drought, swapping development teams, all of that, Are there many other looters that are doing better right now? I mean, Steam charts are public. Tom, the Division 2 only released 6 months ago on Steam, meaning its player base comprises of either entirely new players or a small subset of older PC accounts who wanted to make the switch. And you've got a few thousand playing on there, add in the Epic Games Store, direct through UB Connect, Xbox One, PS4, Series X and S, PS5. Yeah, I've got a lot of confidence in Tom Warren's reporting ability with that "I know nobody is playing the game anymore" comment. Not to mention the large amounts of new content being made for, quote, nobody in Year 5, like a new DLC package, an endgame redesign, the fact that another support studio recently got added to the development team. But no, that's a lot of work to investigate that stuff. We cannot expect anyone to have that kind of time to search that up. And to cap off this wonderful story, it looks like Tom was not able to withstand the logic being presented to him, as he later locked the entire thread, meaning no one was able to reply or further the discussion. Wah wah. I guess he was fed up with people using his platform in ways he didn't like, so he suspended and banned them. No? Too far? Alright, well that's enough of that. The other one that I wanted to take a look at was from Glad. Now for the record, I know very little about Glad other than his presence as a primarily Destiny streamer, at least I know he used to be. I tuned into his stuff from time to time and it was always entertaining, but among other creators who chimed in on this was his statement. Lol, quickest way to kill off your game and turn off your hardcore dedicated supporters, something smells familiar here. Now at the end there, he's referring to Anthem. I did some quick research, take notes, Tom, and I guess back when Anthem launched, they had banned for doing an in-game exploit and Glad was caught up in that. But the real kicker from this was to say that suspensions and bans for exploits turns off your hardcore dedicated supporters. Really? I think that's an immensely silly thing to say. Are there some hardcore players who partake in this stuff and who don't return upon being banned? Yes, but I think the vast majority, certainly myself and all of the other hardcore people that I know, we don't partake in these kinds of exploits as they almost always have a negative impact on the overall health of the game, especially in PvP, and I for one am grateful that an attempt is being made to uphold some integrity and fairness in this community that we're also heavily invested into. So to try and say that all hardcore players and supporters are affected and upset by this is wild, as it's really just a small subset of this community who knows that this stuff has a negative impact, they know the game bans for it, and yet they continue to do it anyway. And that's really where I want to end this off with. There are people who are upset by the bans right now. Most of them are the ones who got caught, but that's besides the point. I'm always somebody who likes to take reality into consideration before getting frustrated or angry about something. For example, take someone who still regularly complains about there being 3 Dark Zones in the Division 2 instead of 1 large one. That's just not going to change. The game lost its PvP team. We're in year 5 of post-launch content. It's just not going to happen. So would I love one big DZ? Absolutely, but I'm not going to let that take up even an ounce of my headspace, as there are far more productive uses that I could allot that to. And the same thing applies here. In the most recent development stream, the dev said very clearly we are going to ramp up our suspension and ban efforts, as we want to send a clear message that we take this stuff seriously and we want to keep our game fair. And they said very clearly future XP bugs that you have to intentionally activate will get suspensions on first offense and bans on secondary. And that is exactly what has now happened with the Descent bug. So regardless of if you agree with that or not, to be surprised by it is kind of baffling. I don't know how much clearer the devs could get about their intentions. Now to be fair, not every single player watches or follows the news coming out of those streams, but this is the devs' plan. They've made their stance clear on these things, they've taken action, as we've seen this week, and future exploits will be bannable. So if one does pop up and you consider using it, don't be surprised when the ban hammer comes down. And like I said, that's got nothing to do with opinion on the matter, it is simply matter of fact what the devs have said and now shown that they will do. The one area of critique I will give is that it is really unfortunate that we even really have to be having this conversation, right? I fully understand that bugs happen in games. Every game ever made has and will continue to have bugs, but the Division 2's recent technical state is of secret to no one, and so whatever measures need to be put in place, I hope that the QA side of things can continue to improve so that we don't have to be talking about exploits and bans and so on into the future. I get that it's going to happen from time to time, but this is already the second big one of the year after the LoW XP farm a couple of months back. So let us hope that the frequency can continue to be reduced so that instead of wasting time on fixes and sanctions, the devs can put their efforts into improving the quality of the game's content itself and continue the development of new content. That's really my biggest thing. I just want to see roadmaps and content schedules that we get stuck to as close as possible, and stuff we get like this Descent bug detracts from that. That's about all I've got for you on this one, guys. As I said, I usually do not delve into all of this, but some of this stuff was just too funny and ironic not to comment on. So I hope you enjoyed it. You're unlikely to see this drama side of RogueGold again for quite some time. Bottom line is, if you're somebody who is getting suspended or banned for the Descent bug, I hope you can recognize the negative impact that it has on PvP in the larger game. and I hope the dev's stance on the matter teaches you that they will take action against it. So, if the opportunity presents itself again in the future, turn it down. Exploits ain't cool. Thank you all for watching, stay safe, I'll see you next time.